Quintin McCann.
I'm Jason Millward.
My name is Spencer Budd.
My name is Craig Varner.
I'm Jacob Dobson.
Loralee Bradshaw.
My name is Joseph Brickey.
Andrew Joseph Keith.
For myself, it's something I'm interested in, and it gives me a sense of accomplishment. It's something that's really challenging, and I feel like skill development is important, and sculpture is kind of my preference. For the world, I feel like sculpture throughout history and today has been a great way to commemorate something, memorialize something that's really important, and those things have stood the test of time.
I believe sculpture is important for the sculptor because it's a form of meditation and reflection on yourself primarily and issues in life. I believe it's important for viewers to slow down and look at and consider both issue, form, and most importantly, beauty. Beauty does a lot to heal the soul, and it's highly underrated in art today.
I believe that sculpture is important for me personally because I enjoy the human form. I think seeing it from only one perspective, it doesn't give you the whole gesture, and I love the human form, and everybody lives with a body, and it's something that everybody can enjoy and should appreciate more.
Something fundamental about working with the figure, working with natural elements, the clay, for example, or if you were carving in stone or wood. There's a discipline about it. There's a magic about it. There's something that's transferal that happens between, if you're a figurative sculptor, between the sculptor and the model. When you're working with the figure, a gesture can connote all kinds of different feelings and emotions. And a lot of times that kind of comes over into the sculpture. So that's really what I love about it.
Sculpture is important for various reasons based on who's the audience, I guess, and for the individual who may be interested in sculpture as a discipline. I believe it helps us understand form. I think form is where it is. I think all two-dimensional drawing and painting is in some sense representing form in some way. I even think graphic design is form, and sculpture is the best way to learn form, specifically sculpting the human form.
Why I believe sculpture is important is because the 3D quality of it, the tactile mass and volume, it has an innate character because of that. We are 3D humans, and it's more connected to our being. I think every human being responds to cumulus clouds and jutting up mountains and anything that really is a striking form, even tall buildings, anything like that in a majestic way. The human figure is so beautifully proportioned. Those proportions you see in nature, but it's kind of part of why I like the figure.
Sculpture is a unique endeavor as an artist. It's also an experience that I believe can reveal truths about our existence that perhaps any human being could benefit from the practice of sculpture, because you learn to understand form, and form is the nature of this world, and our interaction with this world is really an interaction form to form. And when you sculpt, you understand the nature of something from the inside out. So sculpture is a very unique endeavor in that you learn about the nature of form, and especially figurative sculpture, you learn about the nature of human form. That in itself is a revelation about your own nature, your own identity. It's different from painting and drawing in a certain sense that the dimensionality of form is much more explicit, and you need to be much more aware of the structure underneath the surface in order to accurately portray something in sculpture. That search for the forms and that search to understand the forms is, number one, a test of your ability to observe, your test of your ability to understand. In some ways, the great sculpture and great technique in sculpture is a strategy to overcome deception and to see through things that might deceive the eye initially, but with further study, you understand better the true nature of something So it's quite an exercise, and you learn a lot of humility. You learn a lot about yourself.
There are things that we can communicate through sculpture that really inform figurative art. Is all about expressing an emotion and putting forth a message, putting forth an ideal, communicating visually. Working in 3D is one of the best ways to convey that type of emotion. And I think that's why art is important in general, is we need to communicate. Being able to communicate some of that emotion, I think sculpture is one of the best mediums to do that.
Start now. There's easy ways to do it now, and don't ever stop. There's been times I've stopped for a little bit doing some other things, and it's just a little bit consistency.
It's not an easy road. It's a lot of work with great rewards, but they need to be willing to first learn what they need to learn, know what they don't know, work until they achieve it. Can't learn it from a book, can't learn it from anybody else. You've got to get your hands dirty and develop and have those personal moments of discovery through work, not through theory.
Sculpture students really need to learn how to draw before, because sculpture is, particularly when you're working with human form, is about seeing, and drawing is a great tool to learn to see.
Work your ass off. That sounds terrible, but it's true. Don't wait for a class. Don't wait for anything. Just start doing it, and do it seriously and motivate yourself. It's such a discipline. And it's a very old-fashioned work ethic, and it is a lot of work, and it's a lot of study and a lot of trial and error. If you have a class, especially a figure sculpture class or something like that, or a figure drawing class, whatever, use it and go past the class.
It certainly is a discipline that requires us to jump in and put it all in, jump in with both feet. My advice for sculpture is to learn how to draw. Drawing is the foundational, fundamental skill for sculpture. We come back to it even as professional sculptors, even with years of experience. Drawing seems to be certainly the foundation. Practice and habit of appreciation. I think you have to look for beauty everywhere you go. You can learn if you have eyes looking with appreciation. Get in the habit of appreciating things. Architecture around you, mountains, landscapes, things that you are blessed enough to observe and see around you. That practice alone, combined with drawing, can start to help you learn everywhere and every day.
What advice I would give a student if they were interested in sculpture is to give it 10 years. Don't expect any income from it. For 10 years, just study, do a lot of figure drawing, know how to work with tools, be able to weld, be able to know how to work with woodworking tools, everything. Learn tools. And if you don't like using tools, then don't be a sculptor, because you've got to not have any fear of banging things, moving things, being tenacious, grabbing it, twisting it, breaking it, whatever it takes. You really need to have some tenacity and be ruthless when you're a sculptor.
So anyone who's interested in developing their skill in figure sculpture, number one, should realize it's not something you learn overnight. It's something that takes a lot of devotion, a lot of dedication, but also it's something that brings rewards in a way that is really unique and unparalleled.
Advice I would give students interested in sculpture, well, I would say get my online course is the first thing, but then I'd just say it's something that a lot of people have mentioned, but just go at it, just try, just start sculpting. Don't wait for anything. You know, you can get some clay at the dollar store or at Walmart, and you can just start. It does take a lot of work. It is very, very difficult. It's something that takes a lot of dedication if you want to become a master at it, but it is something that is really enjoyable, and I've really enjoyed it. I've always liked drawing and painting, but when I took my first sculpture class, I really connect with working in 3D, and so if you're interested, I'd say try it.
What keeps me motivated as an artist is looking at other artists' work, kind of like what we're doing here, just seeing what everyone else is doing. That's what gets me excited, seeing what is possible and trying it myself.
For me, it's the discovery in stone. I enjoy analyzing that material, working with nature to find a form that's been in the process of being created for thousands of years, and then I just come along and try to find what it is and finish it.
For me, what keeps me motivated as an artist is that there's just an internal drive. I started as a kid. I was interested in art as a kid, and there's an internal drive that just makes me want to create.
That I'm not very good. That I'm always learning, actually. And also having a certain amount of humility about your work and realizing that you can always improve, and you're no better than your last sculpture in many respects. So it's that type of feeling about it. I think the worst thing for an artist is too much flattery and letting that go to their head, especially when people say, "Oh, you're so talented." And they don't realize how much work there is in that talent, which is a little bit of talent and a huge amount of work.
Well, what keeps me motivated as an artist is life and my family for sure. But again, the appreciation of the creation that I enjoy observing every day, the life God has given me, just those experiences that seem to always have a way of being able to be expressed, at least in my way, through art. I enjoy the fact that I'm able to express the ideas that I see and feel, at least to some degree. I do like the challenge of creating. Look at my failures and as an artist, and I'm excited to try it again. I feel like that is motivating in a lot of ways.
What keeps me motivated as an artist? That question is an interesting one because I have no problem with motivation. I am driven ever since I was a child to create. And maybe the student needs to have that if you ever want to go into art. It is always very difficult. I have been doing art since I was an 11-year-old, never quit. But it has never stopped being difficult and arduous, and that's a challenge I've enjoyed.
I've never found it hard to be motivated as an artist because the challenge, it's just a lifelong pursuit to become great. There's so many things that are involved in becoming a great artist that the hardest thing about motivation perhaps is just to not be overwhelmed by how much growth you need. The creative process is so stimulating and so rewarding, and even the challenge of failure and success and overcoming your personal artistic struggles, those things can bring discouragement, but they also bring a lot of fulfillment. And when you've kind of gone through the valleys and you know that there's always a high point at the end, it's just a matter of pushing through.
There's a lot of things. I think having a steady schedule where you write down what you're going to do that day, and then you just work at it until you accomplish those things. If you have a list of 3 things that you write in the morning, you just say, these are the things that I'm going to get done today. And if you're in charge of your own schedule, which a lot of artists are, you do have to get organized, and there's always going to be things that you want to work on and you'd prefer to work on, but then there's sometimes just things that you have to work on and you have to get done. And somebody said that inspiration is for amateurs. Sometimes you just have to do things and force yourself to work on things that are important and that you need to get done, even if you don't enjoy it in the moment. But that passion that drove you at the beginning, you have to remember that and try to use that as you push through and finish a project.
Accurate anatomy is probably the first thing I'm interested in, because there's a lot of things that are subjective when it comes to sculpture, but accuracy is, I like to bring objectivity into art criticism, and that's probably my first thing I'd look at.
What I would look for in the winning sculpture is a sense of spirit. You want to surpass the physical and get into that spiritual communication. So, of course, having met all the criteria of the academic requirements, look for the sculpture that touched me the most.
For me, I lean more towards gesture, and so I think that would be an important component in my judging, because if I don't see the gesture of the figure, if it gets broken up too much, loses the essence of the model, I would shy away from that. I'm trying to capture. I lean towards capturing the essence of the model.
The things I would look for would be obviously proportions, an understanding of anatomy, how that fits into an overall design. originality, even though you can all be doing the same sculpture, same pose from the model, the originalness from the different artists can be amazing. And so that's one thing I would look for the way things join together, how they're articulated. So all of those different things.
Something of the model. I'm interested in the form primarily, but the bonus, the extra above and beyond quality is something that captures this essence of that specific individual, not just her form or his form, but something of the form is something I would look at if I was judging the criteria.
And that question is really a good one, because why is one sculpture better than another? That could be all personal taste, but after all these years of watching, I've been to Italy and all over the world and seen a lot of art, but I don't like a lot of art. So why does one piece stand out of another? It's because one piece has captured the soul, but not the soul of just the model, but the soul of humanity. It speaks to not only the typical, but it speaks beyond that. That is something that resonates for time and forever. Capturing that in a sculpture is really the goal, because we're going to be gone. But one thing about sculpture, it is the one medium that if you put it in bronze or a durable material, it can outlast and it can immortalize our humanity forever.
There's certainly a lot of different criteria that could go into what makes a piece more successful than others. Certainly a sense of accuracy to the forms and to anatomy, proportion, relationships that are true to the character of the body and to the nature of movement. Do the volumes feel like they have weight? Does the body feel coherent and cohesive part to part? And the relationship of the parts to the whole? And ultimately, does it feel like a piece of artwork and not just a clinical study of the figure? Is there emphasis and interpretation and understanding of the character, perhaps of the model or the pose, and revealing or emphasizing what that character is? All of those things come into play in terms of which piece is most successful. It's a very hard thing to judge, so it really becomes a question of priorities.
Just a sense of mastery, and that there's a lot that goes into that, having correct proportions, correct anatomy, feeling the sense of cohesion, the sense of gesture. Gesture is really important. There's all of these things that go into making a great work of art. You can tell usually when something was done by a master. The sum of all of those parts is what I would look for in a winning sculpture. And good face, hands, and feet. Those are difficult areas.
Instagram, Quintin McCann.
I show my work in galleries in Oklahoma, Scottsdale, and a few in Europe. I have public commissions in parks in Utah, just put one in Colorado, private collections as well.
People can find my work on Facebook and Instagram under hashtag Spencer Budd Art, and my work is sold at the Meyer Gallery in Park City, Utah.
My work is on display at the Alpine Art Center in Alpine, Utah, also at Allen and Allen Gallery in Salt Lake City, Mountain Trails Gallery in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and there's a few other places.
My website, www.jacobdobson, JACOBDOBSON.com. And of course on Instagram.
Some pieces at the LDS Conference Center. They have quite a few. There's like some busts of the prophets and some other pieces. Oh, at the Springville Museum, they have some pieces in their sculpture garden. You can also go to my website, LoraleeBradshaw.com.
So my work can be found sporadically on social media, Instagram, on my website. Most of my work ends up in private collections. My website is josephbrickey.com. I'm on Instagram, sporadic updates on those platforms.